this is a teacher training. There's two parts to it. One is what is the world of yoga beyond what we do in a class, and the second part is learning how to teach yoga. So it's super important that you learn that part, how to teach yoga, and you can't do that just simply by turning up to classes.
That was Stu Alexander, both founder and director at the Banyan Tree School of Yoga, but also key director of the Yoga Hub at Liverpool, a hot yoga studio right in the heart of the business district of the city of Liverpool. And in a moment you're going to hear Stu talk about what to expect in a yoga teacher training course and what is open to people of how they interpret a teacher training course, and also what is offered. So sit back, grab a cup of tea, and let's begin. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Yoga Nexus podcast. We have a very special guest on the podcast today, mentor to myself, but also founder of Liverpool very own Yoga Hub and the Banyan Tree School of Yoga. It's where I trained, and I must say it was one of the best 8 months of 2019. And I have the very man here with me, Stu Alexander. Hi Stu.
Hello.
So we're going to talk about teacher training. You may be interested in, you might look at or consider coming on teacher training, but this teacher training is situated in the heart of Liverpool. It's one of the longest stemming studios in Liverpool, and it offers yoga teacher training under Banyan Tree School of Yoga. So Stu, I've known you for a while, and I didn't know about that you done teacher training until it started being a more of a regular. But can you tell us a bit where and how you come about sort of setting up the teacher training?
Well, we set up the first hot yoga studio in Liverpool, and that was in 2011 in the north of Liverpool. And then about a year and a half after that, people started talking about wanting to do teacher training. And so one of my very good friends at the time, who was my teacher when I came to Liverpool, called Frank Perry, we started to talk about putting on a teacher training because he'd done one before.
Oh.
So we talked about it for a while, and sure enough, we got it going. And we had 16 people on the first teacher training, and that was, over 7 years ago. We're about to do the 8th year. We do a course each year, so this will be course number 8.
And I was lucky number 7.
Yeah, lucky number 7, or unlucky number 7. And we moved from that first studio over to Yoga Hub Liverpool, where we are now, in 2013, and we moved the teacher training over here because the facilities are better, and it's just nice to be able to do a teacher training course in a yoga studio that is dedicated just for yoga. We've got the chill out area, we've got the kitchen, so a couple of different rooms where we sort of do breakout classes and things like that, and practice.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, you're in the heart of the city, you're local to everyone. There's transport links in and out of the city, there's parking everywhere. It makes it accessible for everyone. And one thing that I found, obviously discovering the teacher training within Liverpool, it changed my mind, because I had come back with, I wanted to learn yoga, and I knew I wanted to teach it at some point. but obviously the opportunity presents itself, and I was I was like in two minds, because I'm one of them people that's thinking, well, I want to go away to get like maybe a more authentic, if you will, like experience, and go to India and do this 30-day constant bombardment of teacher training. But later did I learn the way, obviously, the Banyan Tree organised itself and it stretched over 8 months. You become that weekend warrior where it is a sacrifice and you do have to give your time, but if it's something you want to go towards, it's worth your time totally. And I'm glad I took the opportunity to do the 8 months, because again, I've mentioned in the previous podcast, it allowed the material and the philosophy and everything we taught that week in class to sink in. And I felt over time it made not just myself, but I think a lot of people kind of seen that benefit of allowing the material to mature, and then for like 2 weeks come back and they kind of leveled up in their sort of teacher experience. And I think that's something that was a good decision, and maybe on my part it definitely was, maybe other people's there was as well, but it definitely benefited.
Frank and I talked about this for quite a while. Should we do an intensive 1 month teacher training? And I'd done a more intensive one, sort of midway, where it was sort of 18 days in Morocco.
Oh, wow.
Good teacher training program. And then we did a couple of 3-day weekends later on. So it lasted all about 3 months, but most of it was during that 18 days, and it was intensive. Up early, you're doing an 1.5-hour class, then you're doing history, philosophy, a bit of teaching practice. We learned one single sequence that was 90 minutes, and we practiced that over and over again. So we do 3 hours of practicing of that sequence during the day, but that meant that there was much less time to actually be learning how to teach. And it was in that short period of time of 18 days. So at the end of the 18 days, I didn't have that confidence to just go out and start teaching classes. And I didn't want that for our students. So you have a choice when you do a teacher training. Some people like to go off to India, Thailand, places like that, and do the teacher training, and it's like, I'm going to go and see the place. You don't really get to see the place because you're up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're training until pretty much an hour or two before you go to bed. You fit dinner and lunch and breakfast in there somewhere. So it's nice that you come in and you continue all your stuff at home, your family, you've got your job to contend with. And like you say, you do become a weekend warrior where on a Saturday, you're in all day from 9:30 or 10 o'clock until 5:30, 6 o'clock. Same on Sunday. But during those 2 weeks in between when we're in, because you do a weekend on, a weekend off, a weekend on, then you've got that time to read over the material, go to classes, and just let the material sink in.
Yeah.
And over the last 7 years we've been doing this, I've really noticed that's made a big difference to people's confidence and also their knowledge base.
Mm-hmm.
Because while you're doing classes with different teachers, then you start to notice, we did this in teacher training. I like the way this teacher did this. I like the way that teacher did that. And you start to develop your own style of who you want to be as a teacher.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to develop that over 1 month when you're every single day training.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that myself has benefited from, is you do have time to create this identity of yourself. And as much as we pick up little quirks and stuff from the teachers, and sometimes they work, but then it's just a guideline to then go away and develop yourself. I think when you I can imagine being bombarded with day after day after day. You haven't got time to accommodate it and assimilate it all in your mind, probably more stressed out than it would be as normal, because you're trying to take in everything you've learned from the day before or the day after, the day before that. So yeah, I think the 8 months, I think the way it's spread out over a single weekend, you've still got time to do your job, do your family, and then do any practice in between. I think that's a really good strategy when it comes to sort of a teacher training in the city or in the UK to sort of consider.
Over the years, we have asked our students, what if we did, say, a full week? And they went, no, we can't do that with family commitments, work commitments. So we found that actually a week on, a week off has worked really well in terms of it keeps it intensive enough where you're on this like journey. It's like you're getting on the train, the yoga teacher train, and you're staying on that train. Your focus is there, but it's enough to kind of really keep it moving.
Yeah.
If we did say one weekend each month, you get too involved in kind of other stuff that's going on. This keeps it intensive enough, but not too intensive. And I think that's why people really kind of keep their focus, and they do well. You know, they start teaching in most cases way before we finish the course, because say maybe after 5 months, 6 months, they've done a fair bit of teaching, because we're very focused on teaching you how to teach.
Yeah.
We do less of those. We don't do 3 hours of classes, which does improve your practice. But this is a teacher training. There's two parts to it. One is, what is the world of yoga beyond what we do in a class? And the second part is learning how to teach yoga. So, but this is a teacher training. There's two parts to it. One is, what is the world of yoga beyond what we do in a class? And the second part is learning how to teach yoga. So it's super important that you learn that part, how to teach yoga, and you can't do that just simply by turning up to classes and practicing for, you know,
there is a formula of how to teach, and that's something that I found from the 8 months of doing the teacher training course, that considering I've trained as a dancer in previous years and previous decades, the one thing, even going to unis and colleges, I didn't feel like I got the encouragement, or at least how to teach, rather than being shown how to teach, where you get shown how to teach, but you never really put it into practice as much as I sort of felt within this 8 months of like, okay, you know, this is me. And okay, yeah, you know, when you get mentored and the principal's eyes are on you, and you go, whoa, and you start slipping up, and you realise that you forget how to do Warrior 2 all of a sudden. That's cool, but the one big benefit, it turns you into a teacher. It shows you how to teach, to formalize the sequences, and you know, mistakes are always there. You're always gonna slip at the tongue, and you're gonna forget your left from right. But I like you said, many of us started after the 5 month period, started teaching externally, and that just shows how it progresses and how confident, and that this course builds your confidence up. And it's not creating a fakeness of saying, oh, you can, you know, it's not sugarcoating things. It's saying it's hard. It is hard to go out there and teach in front of a group of people. It's more about you, and it allows you to go, you can do this. It's not, when you're ready, you'll know.
It's just a formula. Learning whether you're learning how to teach yoga, or whether you're learning how to teach dance, whether you're learning how to cook, it's a formula. You start by looking at the postures. We'll spend maybe 4 hours looking at different standing postures as a group of postures. What are standing postures? What are the benefits of them? Then we'll look at the twists and the hip openers and the back bends, and we break them down so that you understand what back bends in general are doing, as opposed to each individual posture. When you understand what a back bend is, you can apply that knowledge to any of the back bends. So it might be a back bend that we've not covered in the course, but that's fine because you understand the anatomical benefits of it, what's the main important parts of a back bend. So when you start to teach, you start to teach just in pairs, and we might just, remember we did just a couple of postures. Teach a forward bend and then teach a backward bend. And you go and do it, and you get all your words mixed up, didn't you? And then over that sort of 7-8 months, you start to get your words. They start to fit together. You start to learn how to describe going into postures. And so we're very aware of, having done it so many times and tweaking it each time, this works better. And so we've just developed a system of teaching you how to teach. That's one part, but also how to make you into your own teacher. And that's more of a challenge.
It is.
Some people like to go on a training where they learn a script or they learn a single sequence. Bikram would be an example of that.
We can't speak Bikram.
And you learn the script and you learn a set sequence. And that's good if you just want to teach a single sequence. But we do find our teacher trainers want to be able to be more versatile. So they might want to teach a more relaxing yin class, or they might want to teach a more dynamic flow class. They might want to teach meditation. It might be mindfulness. It might be teaching to older people. It might be teaching to kids. I mean, the guys on your course were doing classes from everyone from kids to chair yoga with people with disabilities, blind people, impairments of all different sorts. Some people just wanted to go and teach in yoga studios. So there's such a vast array of different types of teachers now and classes that being versatile is really good. It's more of a challenge to teach people to find their own flow and their own style. But it's worth it for the teacher in the end, because once you finish teacher training, then what?
Well, that's it. That's when your identity kicks in, or you can choose to, like say, you can go with the script. But one of the benefits of the course, again, it's to get creative, if you will, and you can set yourself a couple of yoga sequences up that you may have been regurgitated through different classes. But one thing that you enforced was go away, create this class, or create a sequence, a 15-minute sequence. And then by the time end of the course came, you had like 3-4 different sequences that were personal to you, that you had the muscle memory had gone into you, and you were taught towards a group of 4 or to the whole group. And that's kind of where your yoga language started kicking in, and you're seeing different people's way of interpretation, how to say less is best. And again, it's not, I don't like to say the word production line, because everyone is singular and everyone walked out of there individual, but obviously keeping, where your roots have come from. So we still may mimic a Stu split dog in in how you say it, that deep voice. Stu has a really deep voice when he comes to do like certain poses, and that echoes in you, but it's a good thing, and you can have a giggle about it. But you'll learn that on this teacher training course, and everything that so far has been mentioned, it's a total service to yourself. You'll be doing yourself a disservice if you're umming and ahhing about the teacher training at this point. But go with it.
Well, let's talk about that, because people feel my practice isn't good enough. That's the first thing that people say when you say, well, why didn't you do the teacher training last year, for example? They'll go, oh, I didn't feel my practice was good enough. Your practice is your practice, Learning to teach is different. When you learn to teach and when you're teaching yoga, it's all about the benefit of the student.
Yeah.
It's not whether you can do a perfect standing splits.
Yeah.
It's about you teaching people how to get into the posture. It doesn't mean you've got to show the full posture or be able to do it.
Yeah.
So one of the misconceptions that I'd like to get out of the way straight away is you don't have to have this perfect or close to perfect practice at all. On a teacher training, you're learning what yoga is, how you use it in your own life to grow yourself, but also how to teach yoga. So try and get over the misconception that your practice isn't good enough.
Isn't good enough, yeah.
What we do on teacher training is we build your confidence from the first weekend all the way during the 13 weekends, and it's confidence that grows.
Yeah.
Because you could be an excellent teacher, but if you don't feel and have the confidence to go out and stand in front of other people and teach, then you won't get the enjoyment of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, as you know, on the course, and we have, several every year, they've no intention of actually teaching at the end. They want to just do it for themselves. It's about the growth of a person, the journey of teacher training from the 1st to the 13th weekend. What we do often find though is during those 13 weekends, people start teaching a little bit, and it's fun. We try and make it fun, isn't it? We're there to make mistakes and then learn from them and laugh at ourselves and then improve what we do. But they start to develop a real kind of love and a joy for the teaching. And because they start to enjoy doing it, then they often then want to share it.
Yeah.
And that could be with a family member or a friend that you do it once every couple of weeks. Yeah. Other people quit their jobs and do it part-time or full-time. So you don't really have to have an end in mind. It's more about if somebody planted that seed, have you thought of doing teacher training? And it's still there. Yeah. Maybe it's been a year, maybe it's been 3 months, but you're still kind of thinking about it and it's still there. That's your kind of sign that says, just feel the fear and just jump on and do it. Don't worry whether your posture's on, if you don't think your postures are good enough, or if you think everyone else is going to have perfect postures. You'll come here and you'll find that it's just normal people, like yourself.
And that's it. I mean, when we talk about your practice, what level of experience, or like you said, how long should you be doing yoga before you maybe consider doing teacher training? Do you need to be doing it, years, like people might think, I'm not good enough, like you've covered? Or if you've only been doing it 6 months, is that enough? Say, I feel like I want to deepen that experience and do teacher training. Would that be recommended for them?
Well, normally, if you look at it as a journey, people start yoga and they go, I really like this, it makes me feel great. They'd maybe do a year of yoga and maybe quite regular classes, twice a week maybe, because they're really getting into it. At that point, you start to want to learn a bit more, because we're all aware that there's a lot more to yoga than what we just cover in a 16 or a 90 or 45 minute class. And it's at that point, I would say certainly after a year of regular classes, generally between a year and 2 years, you've covered a lot of the postures, you've tried different postures. Yeah. You've maybe heard of, phrases like, Om, or the chakras, or
Shanti,
or this type of stuff that you might have seen in classes. So yoga teacher training is only really an introduction to these subjects. Mm-hmm. It's like doing a course in life. If you went to university, doing a course in yoga would be as big as doing a course in life and how to live. So we introduce you to all of these different subjects, and we also show you how to teach yoga. So it really is the first step on,
Bigger journey.
a much bigger journey. Don't
much
think
bigger
you have
journey.
to be an expert before you start. You're there to learn about these things. You don't have to know anything about them when you start. But a practice, I would say 1 to 2 years is good.
So for people who might be looking into teacher training, but again, they just see teacher training, I'm just going to learn how to teach a yoga sequence, or, how to meditate maybe. Can you go over maybe some of the subjects that we learn within this whole syllabus of the teacher training, such as like Yoga Nidra and sort of the chakra systems, and what subjects?
Yeah, so there's the anatomy, what's happening in the body, and this is very functional. It's functional anatomy, how you actually use it in a class situation. You're learning the postures, you're learning how to teach the postures. You're also learning how to design a class. So literally a sheet of paper, pen, writing out what you're going to teach in the class and knowing why you've chosen those postures. So that's the kind of learning how to teach part. On the other side, there's the history. Where does yoga come from? Where is it going? There's philosophy. How do we use the 8 limbs of yoga in our own lives, but also when we use it to teach other people to live happy, healthier lives for themselves. You learn about, you can call it the fluffy stuff, the chakra system,
You got
bandhas, chanting, learning about different systems of yoga, Kundalini yoga, Yin yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Shivananda yoga. We do laughter yoga.
Oh, that was brilliant.
That was great fun.
Laughter yoga is absolutely brilliant. It just, the day of laughter yoga is incredible.
So we did that, and at the same time we did group yoga. So we did stuff like in a circle, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we were all sort of doing like a Mexican wave, going around the circle.
Yeah.
We did someone sits in the circle and everyone is chanting Om.
There's like a sound bath.
Yeah, so
type
you
thing
experience
that energy. And
You do meditations on the chakra system. We do Yoga Nidra, which is kind of like a
relaxation and breath.
just a guided relaxation, yogic sleep. That's
we also cover the
translates.
Kriyas. I always say that right. Is
Yeah, so
correct?
these are cleansing techniques.
Yeah.
And so this is like what was happening in India,
Yeah.
when you're looking at cleansing the body through meditation. And so it's learning these different systems or an introduction to them. And how are they relevant for us here in the West? How are they used still in the East? So it's a big subject, and 200 hours is not long enough to really delve in. But it's a start, and you should see it just as that. There'll be parts that you're really interested in, and other parts you're not so interested in, and that's absolutely the way it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, what I really want to ensure is that when you come and do teacher training, that you can sit down with a pen and paper, write out a class, and then have the confidence to go and teach it. That's super important.
Yeah, I mean, you get a variety of stuff that you may never have heard of in yoga before, like the Nidra and like the Kriyas, the philosophy, and it does, you kind of construct this image of how yoga functions on day to day within the world and how you use them. Like you said, you might not be interested in some, but you may pick that up later on in your little yoga journey.
Yeah,
so Kundalini,
afterwards.
Kundalini might not be your thing at the time. You might feel a bit uncomfortable and a bit like, oh, but you may discover it a year from now or a year from the teacher training and go, oh, you've touched on the surface, now you can go deeper into it in your own time.
This is why on the course we have several different teachers. So I really enjoy the yoga philosophy, learning about or teaching about the 8 limbs of yoga. How do we use yamas and niyamas, which these are ethical ways of living that have really, really helped me, and I live them every day of my life. And I love teaching how to teach. Frank really loves the anatomy and looking at the postures in great detail. Mike Cragg, who's been teaching for over 35 years.
He's just a book of legs.
He's just unbelievable knowledge.
He's just knowledge.
Phenomenal knowledge. So he's going to talk about the history and some of the deeper, older yoga texts. Neve, I like to say she loves the fluffy stuff. She is lovely and fluffy, isn't she?
She's a lot of the fire breathing.
She wants to teach you about the chakra system and chanting Om and how you use your fingers.
Yeah, the mudras and the
mudras, exactly.
And
so
she has a lovely natural.
We all have our own specialist areas, things we're most passionate about. And that's what we most love to teach. We're very close actually as a group. And then we also have, Debbie, our Frank and I's accountant that comes in that teaches about the tax system. What does it mean to be self-employed? What does it mean to, start your own business?
And Mike kind of teaches a bit of that as well, because
setting up classes,
which is the best way, maybe ideas to go about setting up a yoga as either a business, a part-time business, or to find a niche within sort of the yoga world. So it's all relevant stuff, especially if you're looking at maybe yoga as a career or a job wise in the future. But that's part of the journey of the 8 months, and you do kind of take all that on board, and it does shift your mindset. That you do think of a lot of things that you didn't think of before, and you think,
what you expect it's going to be, it's
not.
It ends up being more than that. I mean, your goal to maybe learn more about yoga for yourself, or to teach yoga, or to go from full-time job to part-time and then part-time teaching, whatever that is, it really is a journey of the self into the self. And there's, for people during that 7 months, they have highs and lows, things happen during that time. But as a group, I mean, you saw how close a group can become. I mean, you're all still in contact. Absolutely. Aren't you, doing different things? And we finished months and months ago. But
and that's the wonderful thing, because you're going to meet so many people who are on sort of that yoga journey with you in that level, and these are people you may know, you may never have met before, but sort of what you connect with, the group that you're with, I think is something that you'll take away, as well as the yoga teaching, where you've made lifelong friends there. And like Stu just said, people will come and go, but you'll bond as the group over the 8 months, and they're like friends for life. So we finished months ago, and we're still in contact. We're still on chatting to each other, and hopefully that for myself, that's where it'll go. It'll continue on and on and on. And don't forget, these are also part of your sort of networking of yoga in future. So you'll meet some very interesting people.
It's important that if you have the benefit of doing your yoga teacher training here, kind of close to where you live, that you will keep those friends. I did my teacher training in Morocco. People are spread out all over the world and all over the UK. So, it's been very hard to kind of stay in contact with them. The nice thing is most people are sort of from the Northwest, and so they're able to stay in contact. But also that they all always know that myself and Frank and Mike and Neve are here to support them afterwards. So, like today, you came into the studio and you did a class, and we had a cup of tea afterwards. I'm in contact still with, a lot of people that have asked questions about setting up classes, or if they're doing one-to-one, someone's got back injury, what can we do? So there is that after course
The
communication and
the support is there, yeah, and that's something else that echoes after the teacher training courses. The support's still there, and Stu's here to mentor. Maybe you need just that little extra maybe push or mentoring, and he's there to sort of accommodate that and see you on your journey. But
well, we've had some people that finished the course that they wanted to teach, but for some people it's easier to go out and find classes than other people. So people will tend to be approaching me during the year saying, "Oh, I need a teacher for this," and then I'll put it on your WhatsApp group or to a specific person. "Why don't you do this class? It's near where you live.
Yeah,
it'll be convenient." And so it's nice to kind of get people teaching, and pass on the opportunities that sort of come through the studio over to the people that are still on teacher training or they've just finished teacher training.
So again, we've gone into a bit about what the teacher training will cover, whether as long as you're confident in your practice, go for it. If you feel like you want to teach or just learn yoga at a deeper understanding, then teacher training itself may be for you, but don't fight it, go with the flow. But Stu, you get obviously a lot of questions when it comes to teacher training and people ringing up want to know. So what's like the 5, say, bullet points of what's the most common questions people ask when it comes to inquiring about teacher training, and what would you address?
People often want to know, what is the qualification? So that's Yoga Alliance. It's the largest organisation. Probably about 90% of courses are Yoga Alliance certified,
right,
which means you can teach all over the world.
Brilliant.
It's the 200-hour Yoga Alliance certified course. We also add on an extra module where you do learn about hot yoga, because there's lots of hot yoga studios in Liverpool, specifically in Merseyside. People want to know about payment. What payment plans are there? So you can either pay monthly. So it's better if you can say, look, this is what I can manage. By the end of the course, it's all paid anyway. So whether you pay this much a month, each month, or you pay in 3 separate installments, or if you've got the luxury of paying it all ahead of time, then you save a couple of £100 because it's all paid by the time you start the course. So payment's always one. Also about setting up classes afterwards, what does that look like? And so, obviously we discussed that we'll go over that in the course. People want to know what's covered on the course, who the teachers are. So I think a lot of that we've covered today.
Yeah. So you've got the lowdown of teacher training at the Banyan Tree School of Yoga here in Liverpool. It's centred in the Yoga Hub Liverpool, which is on Old Hall Street. For those who might be interested in maybe popping in and speaking to Stu directly. But you can also look online at yogahubliverpool.co.uk/teacher training, and it'll have everything from the dates that the upcoming teacher training in February is due to start. You can check out the date specifically so you can plan ahead for the year ahead and really get benefit from that year, because I've had a fantastic year on that. But along that, you can feel free to also contact Stu either via email or the number on the website.
Pop in for a cup of tea.
There you go.
We like to do. Visit the studio as my guest, come in, do a class, see where you be doing the studio. We have a cup of tea, you ask any questions. The point is, it needs to be a personal journey for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm familiar with the studio, but again, like Stu just said, pop in, don't be shy, don't feel like you need to be the digital yogi and just talk to someone through the phone or online. Pop in, introduce yourself, and you'll be Stu's guest for maybe a yoga session even. But Stu, is there anything else you would like to add about teacher training?
If it's something that you've been thinking about for a while and you're just wondering whether you are ready to do it, good enough to do it, just call and have a chat and see if this course is right for you and if it's something that you want to pursue. Absolutely. It will be the best decision you make.
I can second that because it has. My 2019's been brilliant. Well, one thing I wanted to add, and this is going back to where we teach. We don't just teach in the studio. We also take it in the park sometimes if the weather permits, and then that opens up everything else. So we're not just in the studio, but see what happens when you come across the course. And if the sun's blazing, you take the yoga outside. As much as we can. You get a nice tan and you get really bendy. But for all the details of yoga teacher training with the Banyan Tree School of Yoga at the Yoga Hub in Liverpool, which is the real McCoy, check online at yogahub.liverpool.co.uk. All the details are there, /it with teacher training. Pop into the studio, see Stu. And for everything else, you can check the details below in the comments. Drop a comment, and there will also be a link below to the Yoga Hub where you can check out the teacher training, the dates and payment procedures. But it's been great, Stu. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been brilliant. And teacher training, highly recommended. You can check out my previous podcast, I think episode 2, where I give my own personal account. But everything else, no. Keep it cool, yogis, and I'll see you all next time on the Yoga Nexus podcast.